Perfect. I just went ahead and pressed mute, so I can't hear myself. All right, so as I was saying, at PAC, we are a nonprofit organization, and we were established in 2008. We enable children, teens, and adults to remain uniquely creative through year-round visual arts programming. This online series is totally free, but you're certainly welcome to donate at the link in the chat that I'm about to post. Also, like I said, this is live streamed to YouTube for everyone's viewing pleasure. Today, I'm super excited to introduce Maria Dumlao, who will tell us about her work and some about her process. Maria's art, in her own words, confronts the materiality of media, and it explores digital spaces that aren't normally regarded as physical realms. Her work has been shown at Momenta Art Gallery in New York City, the Contemporary Museum in Hawaii, and internationally across the globe. Maria received an MFA from Hunter College and currently teaches at Bucks County Community College. Also, her son is a student at Portside and an accomplished artist in his own right. I actually had a blast working with him this past year. Clearly, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. So with that, I'll pass the mic to Maria. And thanks again for speaking with us, Maria.
Hi, thank you. Can you all hear me? Oh, I can't see you actually, now that I realize I can't even respond. You're there, right? Okay, so first of all, thank you so much, Portside, Kim, Claudia, Sarah, Joseph. My family has been part of the community for about 4 years now when my son entered kindergarten. And we've been going there since and being part of the community, and we love it a lot. And thank you so much for inviting me, and thanks for coming, everyone. So I'm just gonna jump right into showing my work from the last couple of years, more specifically the series called History in RGB. Can you see, let me just make sure. I'm gonna open up, since I have limited viewing here, I'm gonna turn on, hold on a second. Just wanna make sure I see everybody. I need a, is there a way I can look at the chat at least? Hold on a second.
Maria, if you want to look at the chat, you can at the bottom toolbar.
I see it now.
Yep, you can chat.
Okay, so if anyone wants to ask something, I actually have limited space on my screen right now, so just unmute yourself and just say something, because I can't see you all. So okay, so we're gonna do that. Okay, so let me show you the installation. So just to give you a context of how my prints are interacted with in the last couple of years, this is an installation view of History in RGB. So it's an immersive installation where the viewer can enter the space, become surrounded by domesticated tropical vegetation, and then they could also see through mosquito or fish nets, mosquito nets, fish nets, with embroidery of nature, and then there's also the prints. So this is one view of it, and here's another view from a different space. And you could see on the fish nets, this one has fish nets, there's some embroidery on there of different creatures. So if it's like a nautical theme, there it would be a nautical creatures, and the one previously is mosquito net, so there's mostly land creatures. And also in this image,
I'm not seeing anything.
Oh,
is anybody else not seeing anything?
Yeah.
Oh, hey Sarah. Yeah, Maria, I see you, but it doesn't look like your screen is being shared.
Oh, sorry. What's going on here? Hold on. Share. Share. And then presenter view.
Looks good.
Wait, do you see the full image? Not my presenter view, right?
Yeah, I see right now, I see on the left, I see multicolored mesh hanging down,
Oh,
and then
yes.
there's a pole, and then on the right, there's a two-dimensional image on the wall.
Great, thank you.
And there's a gallery at the bottom, Maria.
Huh?
There's
Yeah.
a gallery at the bottom, like your
Oh, I'm sharing the wrong screen. Share screen, desktop 2, share, interview. Okay,
Yes.
did you see that now? Okay, sorry. Thank you. So you see in the image on that, there's also filters in the bottom of the print. So those filters are actually, has gels in it. So red, green, and blue gels on it. So they're there for the viewer to interact with the image. So they can actually pick it up and look through them. And it's up to the viewer to decide if this is all they want to see. If they don't want to touch anything, that's fine. Or they can interact with the image and they can engage with the image or the space for as long as they want, because there's a lot to discover within the installation. So here's another view of it, and you can see the embroidery. So you can kind of see some of the creatures that are on this mesh. And here's another installation view where you can see some of the prints and some of the details looking through the domesticated plants, tropical plants, and how one interacts with it. So these are examples of someone looking, two people looking through the filters. So so this is an example of what one would see. So the prints are collaged images of prehistoric, well, not prehistoric, some prehistoric creatures, some archival images, mostly done by Europeans or Americans, and also mythological creatures that I insert in there. But that will make more sense. So I just want to show you how the process works when someone looks at the filters. So this is the same image. I think I have to press play. Oh, there it is. Okay, so when one looks at an image looking through red filter, one becomes clearer while the other ones become more obscure. So that's with the red filter. And then holding the green filter, you see how much clearer the second one is. And then there's the blue one. So the green and blue are pretty similar. But one is clearer than the other. So that's the last one is blue. So when you look at them, if you switch back and forth, you would see that the one on the left has the natural light. So this is how you would look at it and interact with it. And then when you pick up the filter, there's a sense of discovery when you look through the different filters and the different lenses. So just to give you a background, I actually know most of you, so you already know where I'm from, but those of you who don't know me, so I came from a place where, as with, you know, in a place where there's a history of colonization. I came from the Philippines. So as with places that are colonized, education and culture were based on the education system of the colonizer. So I studied my people's history based on books written by Americans. So in order to be educated and to pave the way for advancement, one has to adapt to signs, value systems, and languages of power from the colonizers. So the Philippines was under the rule of Spain for less than 400 years, about 400 years, and then the US for about 35 years, from 1898 till officially the 30s, but the US is still present in the Philippines. So this is just an illustration that just shows the different countries the US colonized. So pretty much my education was based on that, and I that's how I understood my own past, my own history, including my value system, not just like literary or education wise, not just professionally, but also religiously. I was brought up religious, and so my values, moral values, is also based on the colonizers' education. So yeah, so the Philippines has been, there's like a saying in the Philippines where 400 years under the Catholicism, and then 400 years in Catholicism, and then 40 years under Hollywood. So that's pretty much like how the culture that I grew up in was identified as those things more than the indigenous. But so fast forward, I moved with my family to the US. So we immigrated as immigrants do. And it became one of the things I did is I took art history, and it became one of the fascinating things about truth. Like I took up art history, and with art history, you learn, just like a lot of things, you learn that there's different influences by who's funding the church, right? So the church, for example, or more specifically like Hagia Sophia, for example, like an architecture that was run by different religions, and it changed its name. It became, Constantinople. Depends on who's in power, and it becomes the truth and the narrative. So I've always been fascinated with the notion of truth as an unfixed entity. So so for truth to be part of a dialogue in looking at and understanding images, whether you believe it or there's some kind of truth, or you can ask the truth is being represented, it made me realize that it depends on who's in power, and that dictates what the present truth is. So so part of that, so part of that notion, I also had been thinking about the narratives that I grew up learning. So when Lee was 5 years old, he became obsessed with monsters rooted in old Hollywood movies like Dracula, Frankenstein, the Mummy. And they were familiar to me because Hollywood's global reach was successful in the Philippines. But when he asked me about the really haunting stories, what I recalled as truly scary were creatures, ghosts, and ghost stories and folk tales that I grew up hearing in the Philippines. So they were passed to me verbally, by on the street, by friends, cousins, siblings, even strangers. So there were stories of like demons, weredogs, vampires, really visceral stuff. So they may or may not be like better stories than the Hollywood stories, but there were old stories that were passed down orally and told in my native tongue. And most of them were based on indigenous oral traditions of storytelling and native gods. So they felt especially visceral because they were set in the place and time that I was there. And it still is ongoing. So if you're there, that is pretty much present as well. So none of these stories were in books really, because they were passed on orally.
Maria, can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
This chart, the words underneath are from the Philippines?
Yes. So this is actually someone studied the mythology stories that are in the Philippines, and they categorized it. And there's different words depending on, because there's 150 languages in the Philippines because there's all the islands. So there's actually different interpretations of similar creatures. So someone had categorized them. Yeah. So so the stories are, so they're very real to me. if anything. They weren't like movies or books, and in fact, they're not in books, that many books, until recently. So that's part of like my truth seeking, part of my journey, and this is my stand of me researching. That's how I look like when I research. So jumping now to color, so my interest in color. So I had been studying Joseph Albers for as long as I can remember. So he said in this book, Interaction of Color, in visual perception, a color is almost never seen as it really is, as it physically is. This fact makes color the most relative medium in art. So as you can see here, the two orange squares, you can see the two orange squares in the middle, the box, they appear to be completely different colors when in reality they are the same. So it depends on where you put them against, right? So mindful of the relativity of color and how light and materials influence paint or pigment or any color or light, it depends on how it absorbs or reflects color differently, right? So I was experimenting with this. I was trying to define certain things. I was trying to create abstract patterns. I was finding the contrast and also obscuring them. So that appealed to me a lot because it's analogous to the relationship to the notion of truth, that because it relies on the relativity of where it's up against, like the relationship of color and how colors interact. So it can never be seen in only one light, like color by itself can never be seen in one light. So based on that, I took the Pantone palettes that were using the term tropical. So I compiled, and Pantone is a constructed color system also that's American. And I gathered all the ones that have, that were used in tropical context. So I gathered them and I narrowed them down to 16. And so this is the tropical Pantone palette that I came up with. So, so based on that same 16 colors, I rearranged the 16 colors in different ways so that when you look at a red filter, you can see the top one goes from light to dark. And then the same thing with green and blue. So, and then I used red, green, and blue instead of other filters. So this one is not even looking right. And also colors are subjective. So, so RGB is the language of digital also. So all our devices are based on red, green, blue color language, right? So, so I wanted it to be analog in interacting with the image, but at the same time, it's using the language of digital because that's how we get information, right? So a lot of our information is based on screens, whether it's our phone or internet. And that's just a part of how we, our experience in understanding history or anything, any stories or news, or even reaching out to people is mediated by this screen. And here's another illustration of it against grayscale. So you see that the red on the left kind of blends in. I have to revise that actually. So back to research. So that's my other doppelganger. So I gather materials from archives. I use the Free Library, Library of Congress, New York Public Library, and also libraries in the Philippines, and also just like random Google search, internet, and then also my personal photographs. So I combine the historical and the mythical stories and personal images so that I can question that. So I try to question the accuracy of the different forms of representation. and how they can reveal multiple narratives. So depending on who can see them, right? So here's an example. I'm going to go through the process. So an example here is a print I found at the New York Public Library with the caption that reads, "As the first of these men came up the bank, the Filipinos bolted." So that's the original print that I started out with. So I place it against this landscape, from the Philippines, and it's like a beautiful landscape. And I place them as if they are emerging from this beautiful stream. And as the first of these men came to the bank, one can imagine that a group of Filipinos have bolted off screen on the left. So I'm trying to do this narrative within one picture. So they're winning, the Americans, but little do they know they are about to be devoured by 3 hungry crocodiles, which is like a real thing in the Philippines. People disappear in the Philippines and they don't know that there's like a 20-year-old giant crocodile that lives in the river just next door to them, and they don't know this. So this is the kind of thing that happens also. So that's like kind of mystical but natural at the same time. So with that narrative, I start with the, so I try to plan the collage and the narrative of an image, and then I work with every image. So so first I remove the colors from the original image, and then I convert it to black and white. And then I adjust the tone levels. So I do a push and pull between light to dark, because there's like, you know, there's many shades of gray in between the black to white. So I push and pull and see which looks good to me. And then I apply colors to each one of them, right? So when I apply it, it's kind of like paint by number. So I try to figure out like this gray needs to be a lot more lighter grays than darker grays. So there's a lot of push and pull, and then I apply the colors as one would with the different tones based on those 16 colors. Are you all still with me, or did I just lose you all?
No, it's great. It's really great.
Okay. Good. So I'm never sure, but okay. So just ask me if there's any questions. So yeah, so I apply these layers of color. So it's a little bit like, so it's like there's a lot of photography in there because you're pushing and pulling the tones, the value scale of black to white. And then there's paint by numbers kind of, and then there's, it's almost like a printmaking technique, what's happening here. So there's multiple things, and sometimes, well, a lot of times I should say, a lot of times it doesn't work. And then I have to start again and see and fix it, see where it's not working. So, so after that, I end up with multiple versions. So here's an example. So I end up with a green on the left and blue on the right. So they look very different. But if you look at with the green filter, I see if like it works really well. And then I have to determine all the other elements that I want to reveal within the image, which one's gonna tell the story in green, which one's gonna tell a story in blue. So I arrive at different versions. So here's an example of the background. So the original, and then the red version, blue version, green version. And then I take the crocodiles and I made them all red version. And then at the end, I decided to actually split the narrative. So this is what it looks like with without any filters, with the 16 colors. And I'm gonna zoom in. And then, so this is a zoomed in to see the details better. And then this is with the red filter. You can see the right side becomes revealed with the crocodiles. And then on the left, you can see the soldiers coming up, and then the crocodiles just become obscure. So really I also have this habit of like not habit, but I have this practice where the art that I make is always really difficult to document. And it's always like, you know, I want it to be very interactive so that in person, they really come, you know, they pop out. But the problem with that is documentation. So I always have that issue. So here is the looking through red filter and green filter. So, so the act of looking through the lens also, it offers a sense of discovery for the viewer. So they can examine and they can indulge how deep they can figure out, they have the agency to dive deep into the narratives and consider the possibilities of multi-narratives within one place. So I wanted to suggest that the legacy of colonialism as seen through images created by American and European colonizers are present, and are also, I wanted to incorporate the European artists that had been to some of these exotic lands, right? So I was looking at a lot of Henry Rousseau and Paul Gauguin, where the viewer also becomes sort of like a voyeur, right? So you're implicated in the situation where you can explore it, but then you're also implicated as a voyeur. And I wanted that experience to be part of it. So here's an example of, like, this is a photo that someone took looking through the filter. So it looks like on the right, and then through the filter, the red filter. So another illustration of that. So I'm just gonna scroll through. I have a lot of these images actually, but I put a selection where you can see this is the natural light. And then if you look through green filter and red filter, the same image. So this is Magellan getting killed by Lapu-Lapu. And then this one actually has multiple things in it. So this is how it looks like in natural light. And when you look through the green filter, you see the teachers, American teachers mostly. And then this is with the red filter. And also you could see there's a volcano erupting in the back that you didn't see here, but it's here. And there's also a tree god on the right. This one is Fire at Will with Snakes. So this is with natural light. This is with the green. And this is with the red. And I actually, yeah, I have this in my studio, so I can even show you how big, how they look like. And then this one is an alay, isang alay at manananggal. So she is holding, she's actually behind the window and she's holding an American flag. So the photo context is she's welcoming the American soldiers as they pass through her barrio, her town. So she's an ally, so she's supporting the American troops and she's a good citizen. But at night, there's a lot of bats there. So she actually becomes this vampire-like mythological creature. So she grows wings and half of her body separates from her torso separates from her legs. And then she leaves her legs with the banana trees. That's why the banana trees are there. So she leaves her legs with the banana trees and then she flies around with half body. And then this one, the image in the middle looks familiar because I showed that in the beginning. So this one is a wild boar attacked by a boa constrictor. And with the green, you see the forest and how big the forest is. And then with the red, you see these figures. So this is actually one of the prints that I really fell in love with this with the prints, and I wanted to use them because like this image is just so like says a lot to me. How like there's these two American or Western, actually I don't even know if they are Western looking, so I think they are American. And they look like hunters or soldiers, whatever they are hunting something or someone. And then they come across this giant snake that's about to devour this giant boar. And so there's something about that it's just like, I don't know who's more scared. And then on top of that, they are all engulfed by this forest, which is like so much it's even bigger than them. So I was really attracted in the layers of who's in power here, right? So this one is Pacific, 1993. So this one is an event that was happening, or multiple events that happened in the Pacific Ocean. They're not necessarily all in the Philippines. This was specifically in 1993. So I made this our Asian Arts Initiative during their anniversary. So they were celebrating their 25th anniversary. So I figured what happened in 93 that makes them essential. What was the beginning that Asian Arts Initiative started? What was going on in the world that we are still related to right now? Why is it necessary? So I incorporated a lot of events that was happening, including the eruption of a volcano in the Philippines that closed down an American base. That's why there's a US Navy fleet that's leaving. The dictator's wife was coming back to the Philippines, Imelda Marcos. That's why there's a murmuration of like shoes here. Like they look like murmuration of fish. And then there's this boat is actually a stowed away ship that was found in Far Rockaway, New York, and it had Chinese refugees in it. And at that time, they were stowed and left in Far Rockaway Beach for a while. People were jumping out of it and killing themselves, and because they don't want to go back to where they came from. And so they were taken to Berks County, the same place where ICE is detaining all these families right now. So there's connection between what happened around that time in 93 that involves the immigration, refugees, and the diaspora, like people who are here right now in the US, and how the immigration policy we have right now is tied back to what happened in 93 and that stowaway ship. Yeah, so there's like multiple other things going on here. So there's also a mermaid in there. So so this is what that one looks like. So I kind of, it's a lot of details. So the one on the right, you could see the water pretty clearly. The green one, the red reveals the ship and the volcano. So this one is Gris Escala ng isang datu. So she's actually, or he is some kind of a chief. This image was actually shot in the US because there was a World's Fair that happened in St. Louis, Missouri. And they brought different indigenous Filipinos, different from different islands, and they photographed them. And so they were showing them in the World's Fair. It's really messed up. But this is this image shown in green, blue, and red. Any questions? Because I'm just like, I have a lot of these and I could keep going on, but if you want to just ask away, you can.
When, Maria, when you add the color, you had before, you had like the sequencing of each color on top of the soldiers.
Yep.
You do that, that's done digitally,
Yes.
but is the effect like you're having to kind of quote unquote paint over every little spot that you want every little different color?
Yeah. So I pretty much figure out the variety of grays that there are. So I assign the all the 16 colors. I assign them to a range of grays, different ranges of gray.
Okay.
Yeah. So like so here, for example, like this green, you can see this, right? So the green one here, like this is light to dark here. You see that?
Yep.
So I use the colors, like the different colors, and I assign like this is going to be really, really bright or light in green.
Okay.
And then red is going to be the darkest in the green scale, right?
So when
But then it's opposite when you go to red, the red. So this is all the same image, right? So with the red translates in the red filter as light. You see that? So here it translates as a light. Yeah, so it's a different value system of colors. So you have to keep rearranging the different 16 colors to translate and clearly in red.
So it makes a lot of sense. So for each piece,
yeah,
do you keep the same gray value connected to the same Pantone color, or does it change with each piece?
It depends. Yes, sometimes it changes a lot. Actually, I had to do a lot of revision. And the thing about colors is that it's also subjective. Colors is subjective. Not only is it changes, depends on which color it's interacting with, but it also changes with the day, right? So not just with the light, like if it's like afternoon or morning, or if it's like fluorescent or tungsten light, but like even myself, like I would look at the same image the next day and realize this is so off, this is like, this is not working for me. And then I save that and I do another version. And the next day I look at it again. And then I go back to the original again and say, oh yeah, it completely makes sense. So I just have to go with what makes sense the most, like on any given day. But yeah, so like the way we experience color changes also. So there's like when I showed the scale earlier, the video, I was like, oh, that's wrong. That's because I see where I need to rearrange it, right? So it just depends on yeah, color is hard, but color is also fun. Does that make sense? Like how
It does, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Maria?
Yeah.
Hi, this is Amy.
Hi.
I had a question. This is coming from someone who is not an artist, so some of these questions could be, so when people create 3D images, for example, I don't know. I mean, I'm curious how you got into the wanting something to pop, like, you know what I mean? Like, did watching 3D movies have any impact on that at all, or to kind of, or am I totally off base? Because
no. I think those are all. It is part of how that 3D came about. Is also part of some kind of. It's also manipulating our perception, right? So it's playing with how, what is it, parallax view.
Right.
How your left is seeing something different on the left and something different on the right. So it's just a rearrangement of those same colors so that the red will hit,
Right.
like the way you're gonna see it on the right, the red has to be here. You know what I mean? Like, and then you shift it differently so that it speaks directly into the right eye versus the left eye. It's a different process, but I think like theoretically, maybe it's similar in that it is playing with our perception. Like even this image alone, like, do you see how the red is popping out? Like, and then the blue recedes back. Do you see it?
It also reminds me of when you have like infrared or you're sensing heat, different, I'm just bringing that up as like what I see. Like, what does this remind me of?
Yeah, no, certainly. I think there's a lot of it probably is the same science, it's like but it's working specifically on the parallax, like the science of parallax.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
I have another question from a book lover as a librarian to tie this into literature. So I kind of view this as almost a way of seeing an unreliable narrator in a book, where you do you trust what you're seeing? Do you trust who created it, why it was created, what they want you to see? So I just tie that into when I'm thinking unreliable narrator has been a really popular way to write in the last couple of years. And so this kind of reminded me of that, of like, not tricking, but just letting you know, can I trust even the person who is writing this as that this story is correct? Like that, that the writer is, it's their viewpoint. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that up because I thought of that.
Yeah, certainly. That's like definitely something that I want the viewer to experience and actually be conscious of. Then I know that, okay, this is working because they're starting to question even the image that I'm presenting, and I'm not claiming to be the truth sayer. I'm not really giving the truth. In fact, I'm actually suggesting that all the truths may all be, constructed anyway.
Correct.
So, I think that that's part of the experience I want the viewer to have, that even like, that's why I also show this analog. So I wanted this initially when I was playing with this, I was projecting light to the print and video, but I didn't want it to be about I didn't want it to be like, oh, that's a magic trick. And I didn't want it to be that. I want it to be very much analog, where you see the print. There's not even a glass in front of the print. So I wanted the viewer to really get close or as far and look at the image and say there's nothing in between. But it's up to you if you want to put these filters in front of you to manipulate it yourself. So they become tools for them to really question it. So that act of discovering is also, that's a big part of what I want to happen, that they can change their own narrative, and then they can choose like, oh, this must be the way it is. But it's really up to the viewer to figure out what they want to believe. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks. So, so any other questions? I mean, I could just like scroll through this. If you have any questions, just ask. So this is a video. This is like how I demo some of the prints. Yeah.
I've got a question.
Yeah.
I'm curious, what you're working on most recently and how your process has changed in the wake of social distancing. Because I think what's so interesting about your work is it really breaks down the barrier between these digital and physical spaces. But a lot of the work you've shown does take some kind of in-person engagement. So I wonder how maybe your process has changed with that?
Well, good question, because I feel like I actually don't know what's going to happen, really, like everybody, no one knows. So I think like my process has been stunted because of a lot of the things that has happened recently. So to the point that like my sewing machine just broke. Like, and I was making clothes, or making I was making masks, and then also I was designing self sculpture and using some of this technology also to actually print them on fabric, and make them into clothes, wearable clothes, where it could be part of an installation or part of an event where someone could walk through spotlights that are red, green, and blue. So they're outfits, someone who's like actually actively participating in the space could also change the shape and the narrative of what they're wearing. But again, that requires actual interaction, like in-person interaction. But I haven't thought as far as like, how do I show things online, exclusively online, because I am commenting on the mediation of our experience through digital, but then I haven't figured out, well, I don't want to be repeating what media is already doing. I don't want to be repeating, how or maybe I should, but I don't want to be like part of like the putting more content out there that would just like confuse everything else. It's already confusing. So I'm also, I'm just like, I don't even know how to deal with this. So I'm just going to keep working with, as if things are going to go back and we can actually see these things in person. I mean, I think right now I'm just like trying to figure out what this even mean. Certainly it's things I already question anyway, like how our experience is mediated, and my sources, I'm already commenting with the red, green, and blue as our primary color in how we see things, and even more so. So everything we see every day is dictated by the red, green, and blue signals. Yeah, I don't know if I'm answering a question, but I just like, yeah, it's like I'm concerned with the different narratives anyway. And I think time will tell how we're going to sort it out later. I mean, certainly we have the fake news, and yeah, I don't want to get started with that. But anyway, so.
But Maria, don't you think this is, it's just another way to explain that even the media that we receive is through different lenses? I mean,
yeah.
One of the things as a librarian I do is I try to make sure people know, research it, don't just accept it as it is, that these are the things that you do. I think this is a really good way to open that conversation, if that makes sense. It might not be for everyone, but I think maybe even for children, I think seeing color and understanding how this looks different is maybe a good way to even teach this type of, just realizing that this has been produced by someone for something, and what does that mean, and what, to really be more critical thinkers.
Yeah, it's definitely, it was a goal of mine too when I started this series, that I wanted it to be accessible to as many people, including most especially my family, really, because I came from a family that we didn't really grow up looking at art or understanding art. So it wasn't until later on when I was in college that I even got the idea that you can actually take this seriously and do something with it. And the power of the image is like so so much to me. But my family, my family never really understood what I'm doing. So I wanted to be accessible to someone who's not familiar with art. Also children, I want children to find something out of it. Like, it becomes a fun experiment. Like it's kind of like a finding, did you find the dog? Did you find the bat? And it becomes this game, and it's really, and it's interactive. So I wanted that to be a big part of it. And also, at the same time, I want my family to come and like, oh yeah, there's that story. So they identify these stories that they actually haven't seen illustrated before, like the those mythologies that you don't really find good written literature about them, or you don't find any image representation of them anywhere, but it's present in their lives. So I wanted that connection. At the same time, there's like the material itself has a responsibility of conveying something. Like for me, the color here becomes the metaphor for relativity of things, where it depends on what you're looking at, where you're looking through, and where do you put that against, right? Like and where you can agree, like a certain color is light, but in another color, in another lens, in another narrative, it's actually really dark, right? So there's this so there is like a color theory, art history component, but my family don't have to necessarily have to know that to get the point, to get something out of this. So I was conscious of the making this accessible in somewhat, and also like the colors I use, it's like really there's also I was referring a lot to chromophobia. There's a book, what's his name? David Batchelor. And so he talks about how the garish color is like there's a hierarchy of, high art being minimalist, and being clean, only using you don't want to be garish. And I was intentionally fighting against it, or I guess I was questioning that too. It's like, okay, well, if that's the case, I'm going to use all these tropical Pantone palette, and it's going to be really busy, So it is the I am also addressing the hierarchy and the questions in art history of what is high art versus low art. So there's like different levels that I think can be used to teach different things with this series, I think.
Maria, how long does it take you to make a piece?
It takes me a while. I mean, I don't know if Chris is still there, but Chris will tell you how long I disappear. But I work on things like simultaneously. So there are times that I would work on an image like for a week, and I would scrap it, and I was just like, it's not working, so I just give up. But then there are some that I start and then I pick up later. But if I were to just sit and let's say it works, if I'm working on one particular image and it works, I would say like if I work like a full day, it would take me like 3 to 5 days per image, I'd say. But it's hard to tell. Some of them, like, they work really well, like immediately, and then some of them just like, it's like days go by and it's like, what did I just do?
Thank you.
Yeah. So, oh, okay. So I have this image so I have a lot of these, so I'm just gonna scroll through them. So this one, notice how the color, so these are the tropical Pantone palette, right? So that's the end of that. So I actually did another series that was for New Zealand. So I actually changed the arrangement of colors. So I did I took colors that were used in the art in New Zealand, art and graphic design, their historical library, their images. So I based my colors specifically for New Zealand. So I did this work as part of the celebration they were having in, it was the 250th anniversary of Captain Cook arriving at New Zealand. So I was part of this exhibition with the Maoris, Samoans, reinterpreting that celebration. So so I researched their mythologies and also their images. So I reconstructed some of the narratives based on the Europeans and indigenous people's stories. So this is a different palette. So this is also from their wars and some animals and creatures that were also, some of them are gone and some of them still exist. So, and then this is the installation. The clothes there is part of it's someone else, another artist, and she wore them during a performance. So it became part of the backdrop for the performances as well. And then I added this. So I didn't talk about the embroidery, but I wanted to throw this in there at the end because there's a lot of embroidery actually in the shows. So that's a green tarsier.
That looks amazing.
Thanks. So yeah, I think yeah, and does anyone have any other questions or anything? I could keep showing or I could just I want to see you all. So
do you have anything coming up that we should be aware of? I know the world has exploded, so.
Yeah, I think I actually don't know because I did have plans. I was supposed to be working for shows in December and some other ones, but I don't know if they're going to happen. I don't think they are. So I am just trying to figure out like what I can do here because a lot of the projects I thought I was going to be doing this summer are not happening. So I don't really, and I have to find a sewing machine because apparently you can't buy any sewing machines now that are under 1,200. So and then my thing is under repair and it will take 6 weeks. So anyway, yeah, so it's like there's like amongst many other things I'm just like trying to figure out. I think like if anything, I'm just opening the doors for playing. So I'm trying to play a lot, like, not really having any shows in mind or having an end project where it's like, okay, I'm going to do this. And then like, I'm going to have this work. Right. So I'm not even in that place right now. So right now I just want to, I just want to like play because I don't know what else to do,
Yeah, I think that's so important to the process anyway, to actually enjoy the process and not always, be hampered down by the labor, hopefully, all the time.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for your time. I think we should wrap it up. but I really appreciate you telling us about your work, and thanks everyone for joining this edition of Artists at Lunch. As I mentioned before, we definitely welcome, if you can, make a donation to Portside Arts Center, the link in the chat. You can also visit our website at portsideartcenter.org so we can keep supporting the artists of today and tomorrow. I hope everyone has a great week, and we'll see you every other Wednesday at 12:30. So it's an ongoing series. So our next Artists at Lunch will be on September 5th. And that's it.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Portside.
Thanks, Maria.
Your work is so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing it with us.
Oh, thanks. My pleasure. Thank you.
Awesome. Bye, guys. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.